Yo guys, what's up? My name is the Judge Prime, here again with another album review. This time we're talking about Frank Ocean's latest album, Blond. Now Frank Ocean is an R&B singer, songwriter who released an album in 2012, was it, titled Channel Orange, and since has sort of gone missing, so to speak. So you'd imagine that there's a lot of hype, there was a lot of anticipation leading up to this album. You'd see a number of memes, where's the album, Frank? So he kind of dropped 2 albums. I'll be talking about Endless maybe tomorrow or the day after, so within a couple of days I'll have a video up on Endless. But today we're talking about Blond. Now I will admit I wasn't the biggest Frank Ocean fan, or still I'm not the biggest Frank Ocean fan. Now calm down, I'm not going to slander this album. I've come to observe that Frank Ocean's fans are quite passionate, but these are my opinions. You're welcome to disagree with them, but here's my thoughts on this album. It's very aquatic, very druggy, slightly moody at times. You know, you have the more electro influences, and then you have the more traditional R&B sounds on this album. I would say for me, the first sort of half of this album felt very boring. It felt slow. There wasn't very much that kind of had me like, oh, this is so good, this is inspiring. That was on the initial listen. After giving it a couple more listens, I was like, okay, I like this album, I like the direction with which it's going. I would say my favorites on this album would be Pink plus White, Nights, and Sci-Fried. If Sci-Fried or Sci-Fried, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but anyway, those would be my favorites. Now this album, what does it exactly have in it? I would say, yeah, there's electro in this album. You know, Frank Ocean seems to be trying to go for a more alternative R&B sound on this album. Like I said, very moody. Touches on a few themes here. There are themes of love, themes of life. There are also these sort of drifts in and out of social issues or political issues. On the opening track, I think he said R.I.P. at Mike Brown. This song I didn't like because it has this annoying chipmunk like, or Alvin and the Chipmunk-esque auto-tune feature, which is characteristic of the first few tracks. I didn't like that effect. It just felt very irritating to me. Ivy, very electro, like I said. It slightly have this indie influence. Again, with the chipmunk auto-tune, I didn't really like that. Pink plus White, like I said, this was my favorite. I really liked the piano and drumming instrumentation on this. The backing vocals on this were amazing, very soothing, very calming, sort of drift away on this song as well. And very immersive song as well. Another problem I came across with this album were there were a number of skits. I'm not a huge fan of skits, like individual skits. I prefer you sort of find a way to integrate the skits within the song, sort of like what Kendrick Lamar did on Good Kid, Mad City. Nevertheless, this was an interesting skit from his mother talking about using drugs, how it makes you lazy, how it's very addictive, and she doesn't want her son going to school and starting to use drugs. Interesting skit there, nice little personal touch there. I would say this album is very personal. Frank Ocean delving into a number of sexual and emotional issues that he's faced in his life. So I do love that kind of authenticity in an artist. I do like when an artist talks about stories that are personal to himself, not just talking about, you know, drugs and bitches and the lavishness, but talk about real things that have affected you, personal things, and, you know, that kind of connection between the artist and the listener I value greatly. So another song, The Skyline 2. Now this was a very smooth ballad. It did kind of get a bit boring, but it was a nice song nevertheless. The song Nights was another song, one of my favorites, as I said. This is a nice song for you to drive through. I feel like you can drive on a late night, you know, just you and the road reflecting on your life. I like the instrumentation. I like the bridge on this song. I like how the song changes towards the latter end, you know, a different tone, a different tempo. Definitely a fan of this song. Then there are 2 solos on this. There's a solo, normal solo, and a solo reprise. On the reprise, Frank Ocean is kind of rapping. There is an interesting line here. I don't know if that's exactly a shot, but he's saying something along the lines of he had the impression that everybody writes his own bars only to come back and see it's different, or something like that. You can let me know if I'm wrong, but if I'm to take a wild guess, ghostwriting, which has been a topic for the past year, First person that comes to mind, Drake. Is this a possible Drake shot? I don't know. It's interesting that Frank Ocean would talk about people writing their own things. I don't know if he's talking within the context of rap or the context of music in general, because like I said, he's a songwriter, but perhaps he's talking within the context of rap, which is interesting because he kind of raps. I'm not a huge fan of his raps again, but it was decent nonetheless. A nice effort, a nice song. Another skit. I don't like skits, as I said earlier, but this was another interesting skit. It's called Facebook story about a guy who didn't want to add his girlfriend on Facebook because he was like, you know, we're seeing face to face, why do I need to add you on Facebook? I felt it was interesting, especially with how preoccupied we are with social media. Another interesting skit there. Like I said, this album is skit heavy. There are a lot of skits. Perhaps it's to give a little bit of context here. I know a problem that I had in Endless, which I'll go on to talk about later on, is that there wasn't a lot of context to the video of Endless. But yeah, this skit, interesting skit once again. So the song Close to You, I'd say that would be a very rich listening experience. This album will probably be best listened to with your headphones. You can listen to all the little intricate pieces here and there. This is a very aquatic song, very robotic as well. There's a heavy auto-tune on this. I would say that even though the auto-tune is heavy, Frank Ocean works well with it. Very immersive song. You should definitely try and listen to this on some headphones, you know, in the dark room. Definitely immerse yourself in this song. Now, Sci-Fried, as I said, another favorite of mine. Very beautiful orchestral instrumentation on this. Another deeply immersive, very beautiful song. Backing vocals, great. There's another song, Godspeed. I feel like this could be played in church. You know, it's a more modern, you know, church song, if you can call it a church song, a more modern like Sunday song. Definitely you can play this on a Sunday. Maybe you can even play it in church. I don't know if you're the church DJ. Before I forget, there was something that Frank Ocean touched on in quite a number of songs. He talked about Nirvana. If you don't know, Nirvana is sort of a state of statelessness when you achieve complete peace. I don't know if Frank Ocean is trying to attain that, but I definitely say this was a more peaceful album, a more reflective album, and a sort of gets you in your thoughts kind of album. The closer on this album, Futura Free, a decent closer, kind of feels like a thank you, does address some things about haters and things like that, but it's an okay closer. So overall, I'd say this album is very beautiful, well constructed, instrumentations are great, the singing is quite good, the songwriting is decent. I would say the beginning of this album was very slow and boring for me. It wasn't the best build up I could have. Another problem I had, it was a bit too skit heavy. There were a number of songs which were just like a minute, just over a minute. I would say that Frank Ocean fans would be pleased with this album. If you're a fan of R&B or a fan of alternate R&B, you would definitely enjoy this. If I'm to give this a rating, I'd give it a 7. But hey, those are just my opinions. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. And a 7, it seems befitting in my opinion. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please give a like. Be sure to check out Frank Ocean's album. If you're new around here, why not click subscribe and check out some of my other content. My name is Ijaji Prime. Hope you have a blessed day and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.